You're listening to the Family Discipleship Podcast, a podcast of Training the Church.
Hey, this is Adam Griffin, and I'm here with my co-host, Cassie Bryant. Cassie, what do you think, as a husband, as a man, I'm wondering, what are some of the most common pet peeves you hear about from women? I'm not saying you have this about Eric. I don't want to get personal.
Eric's not like most men, so.
Heyo.
Heyo.
Exceptional. What's
what
a common pet peeve you think?
Nagging? Why is she asking me to pick my towel up again? Maybe
Nagging.
it's one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, this is pet peeves that the men have.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking
I was
what?
trying to get inside the female brain and say, what are things
what are
that
pet
women
peeves we have?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were.
I thought you were saying women don't like to feel like they're a nag.
Oh,
Like that would be
I don't mind
that'd
feeling
be a
like
pretty
a nag.
introspective pet peeve. Oh, I just hate it when I'm like
No, I thought you were saying what are men's pet peeves around
No.
their wives. I was like,
No.
I don't know. Yeah, most women's pet peeves around their husbands might be leaving their towels on the floor. Like maybe
A lot of hygiene
a lot
and
of
hygiene and household stuff.
yeah.
How
How something
rinse,
is done.
doesn't
didn't,
rinse the cup out,
Didn't load the dishwasher right.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Even what we talked about, doesn't remember what I just said around the calendar. I know that
yeah.
can be a theme.
Oh yeah.
As the kids are getting older and there's a lot more moving parts. It's like Tetris, but with
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, not remembering things
In general.
in general.
Not listening.
Not remembering, not listening, can't find things.
Yeah.
Gosh, you're describing me. Am
No.
I your
You're a
pet
great
peeve?
listener.
Listen, handsome
I'm sorry, what?
man. You listen
Okay.
and you remember a lot of things.
Oh, I thought you were saying listen up right now.
No.
See how I don't even understand what's happening?
No. You're a good. You
So
are.
maybe aloofness. We can add aloofness to the list.
You're a good listener.
Okay.
And when you can't find things, it helps me feel needed and helps me feel like I offer something to you.
You do have Sherlockian ability to I can be looking in the fridge and say, where is this? And you can describe it to me even though I'm looking at it.
I know where everything is in my house, I feel like.
Is that right?
If the girls are like, where are these pair of socks? Or I'm just
See, if women could understand that's a superpower men don't have, I think there'd be a lot more.
it
Yeah.
feels like a burden
Compassion.
sometimes, though.
Yeah, it is. But I also am like, well, that's one thing I know how to do.
It's your cape.
Yeah, I can do that.
Also, I didn't introduce you, but this is my wife, Chelsea Griffin, talking. She's
Hello.
the best.
She's the best.
You don't have any pet peeves, right?
None.
Do you
But
know?
I've
Oh,
heard,
wait, hold on.
I've heard that some women have an issue with some things that men do, but there's
I
nothing.
didn't know you were asking about my pet peeves, to be clear.
No,
No,
Eric-
I would
he
say-
wasn't.
I-
He
I
said, I
said-
don't want to
yeah,
get
yeah.
personal.
Okay, well, no, I was just saying Eric is very hygienic. if someone's the problem, it's me. Eric's towel's always hung up. Dishes are
Have
always
you ever
done
told
right.
Cassie about schmet schmeeves?
What's schmet?
Tell her about a schmet schmeeve real quick.
This is a concept me and some college friends made up, but it's basically the opposite of a pet peeve. It's something inane and morally neutral, but delights you.
Oh.
So, if I love when you have a skillet that's heated up, and then you lop that little dollop
the
of butter in there and you just
yeah,
watch
the
that sizzle. It's nice,
Yeah.
I have a friend who likes the way a Jolly Rancher kind of gets stuck to your teeth. I'm not on that, but
No.
there's some people like the smell of
Banana Laffy
gasoline.
Taffy. I like the smell of gasoline.
Yeah.
And fresh cut grass. I
Yeah.
love after
I like
lawns
the favorite example I have is when you describe lane changing where your wheels don't hit
Oh.
any of the bumps or reflectors.
Yes.
That is so nice.
It's very pleasing.
Especially if you go around. I also like it if that happens as you're going around a curve and you didn't actually have to
yes.
move the wheel. You actually held it straight, but you seamlessly changed
Yes.
lanes and you didn't hit any bumps.
Going under an overpass in the rain.
Very nice.
Oh,
satisfying.
yeah.
That little temporary,
Nice one.
someone hit mute on the storm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so bring it back to this. In marriage, so this season we're talking about marriage on the Family Discipleship Podcast. Today we're going to talk about contempt and we're going to talk about compassion. When you think about marriage, any schmet schmeeves, anything that you're like, what's great about marriage? Anything that's really just
Eric
delights you?
scratches my back every night.
what?
That is so sweet.
I love a good back scratch. And he does too, probably more than I do, but he scratches my back.
Do you
Great.
ever advise him on the length of his nails, or you're like, "Hey, I need you"?
He just trimmed them the other day. He's so hygienic. He trims them all the time.
Okay.
But I could tell, and I was like, "Oh, babe, you trimmed your nails, didn't you?"
we need to get him a manicure.
Yeah.
Sharpen those things up.
That's awesome.
Chelsea, any
That's
schmet schmeeves in our household? I guess.
I'm always amused and entertained and like delighted when I tell you something about my work and like your response just like shows your knowledge of like what you've learned from me talking about things.
Like my knowledge of like birth anatomy and things like that.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff like
No,
that.
other random stuff.
Okay.
But it just kind of tickles me sometimes. Like if you use like a medical term or something that like, you understand the language and it makes me feel like really known. And it's always just, it kind of tickles me sometimes.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. What about you?
Do I have any schmeeves in our marriage?
Yeah, sure.
I have a million of them.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of my favorite things about, so Chelsea has you know this, we've talked about this before, she has a very high standard for humor, right? So it is very hard for me to get Chelsea really LOLing. She does, if ever, it's late at night, and that is a real schmeeve because watching Chelsea laugh is a real pleasure. One of the other things that's true about Chelsea, though, too, is if I can remember something she said in the past that is funny, and I can save it up and then say it back to her, it is so funny to her, like because it's right up her alley. It's like that's her sense of humor.
Highest form of humor
is her own.
You like laughing at your own jokes later.
Exactly.
Love me some me. I'm like, that is funny.
You're like, oh, I am funny.
I'm like, that's hilarious.
And so if she
It's like,
forgets,
you said it.
Yeah, you said it. I'm just repeating back to you something you said. Oh, that is a schmeeve of mine.
That's great.
I also enjoyed, like, we had some family over this weekend, and we were talking about what was it? Oh, my sabbatical coming up. And they were like, what are you going to do on sabbatical? I don't know how it came up. And you said like, hey, do you want to pick a day that we just lay in bed all day and watch TV?
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah.
And
one of our family members was like, that sounds horrible. And we were like,
no,
I don't think so.
You guys,
we did that one year for my birthday where we picked a show that we were binge watching. We stayed in bed. Like we'd pop out of bed and be like, let's go get something to eat. And then what do you want to do after lunch? Go back to bed.
We left the house 3 times to go to different restaurants for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That's
and
a
other
dream
than
come
that,
true.
we watched a show that we love, and it was so fun.
I'm sorry. We do indulgent birthdays, and that probably sounds really selfish and indulgent, but I've loved it. So the reason I wanted to bring up pet peeves and schmeeves is that we're going to talk about on this episode contempt and compassion. And while it may sound like, based on the title and the subject, that we're talking about 2 different things, they are very different from one another. But one of the issues we have in marriage is seeing the exact same circumstance. There's almost like this moment of choice you get to have as a spouse, where you can let something your spouse has done or is doing drive you to either contempt or compassion. Is this something about them that will drive me nuts and I will maybe harbor a grudge? I will be bitter. I will be
callous.
Just like bothered. I'm going to choose to be bothered by this. I don't know if you ever saw 500 Days of Summer. They do these 2 scenes in the movie where once early in the movie, he talks about how all these different things she does are so cute. Uh-huh. And then later in the movie, he talks about how all these little things she does drive him nuts, and they're the exact same things. And I think that's a good example, again, of what I'm talking about, where something that maybe a group of women might be gathering around to complain about their husbands might be something that a Christian woman would go, oh, when I see that weakness in my husband, I actually am driven towards compassion for him and not contempt. It's not something that is a pet peeve of mine in the sense of like, it's this little cute thing that really bothers me and annoys me. It's something because it's true of the person I love. It's endearing, maybe, or if not endearing, if it's something when it's applied to his actual weakness, that would actually drive my heart to compassion. Does that make sense, Chelsea? Help me put some meat on this bone.
Yeah, we just did an episode today about friendship, and that's one of those things where if my husband is meeting with his friends, going to go do something they like, I can feed the narrative that is he just wants to be away from me. I do all the hard work in parenting. He goes out and has fun. He would rather be with them than with me. Or I can go, oh my gosh, I hope that blesses him. I hope that is so fun. I'm going to pray while he's away with them that the men ask him good questions. I'm going to pray that he comes back just like really saying that his cup was filled by that time with them. I hope it's so fun. I hope he feels really loved. I know, sometimes he feels lonely. I hope he feels loved. That's the same exact circumstance and yet 2 totally different responses.
Yeah.
There's contempt and there's compassion, but there is like no end to the opportunities for this choice.
Right?
It's constant.
Yep.
It's constant. You can do it all day long with every single thing your spouse does.
Yeah, it's about what time they fell asleep or what time they got up, how they brushed their teeth and what time they did it, how loud they were when they did it, how they did the dishes, whether they did the dishes, how they were at work, how they felt when they got home, how they listened or didn't listen, whether they looked at you. Like, you're right. If it's not one thing, it's another. I've heard you say many times, right?
Right. If that's like the habit in your mind, it doesn't matter what it is. Very similar to things like anxiety, where people go, "Oh, I'm just anxious because of this event that's happening right now," and you're like, "Well, if the discipline of your mind is to always just run with fear and worry rather than to pray and have a grateful heart and give thanks to God, those are disciplines of the mind." And it's not ever actually about the event, right?
Yeah.
So until we change and we have a new discipline and a new pathway in our mind of how we're going to look at things, it's always going to be another thing.
Yeah.
The thoughts we entertain become like the narratives
Yeah.
of our life. And
Yeah,
so
and
then
we
we
start-
live it out. And it's almost like this choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so it's like you get to the bottom of the page,
Yeah.
which is the end of whatever the circumstance is. And then you choose how to perceive and approach what,
Yeah.
And so it's like if we could discipline our minds, take the 5 seconds to pause and to make, the good choice.
Yeah.
Follow Jesus and believing the best and having hope, a spirit of hope, not doubt.
Yeah. Heart of empathy and compassion.
Yes.
Right.
Then it's like, man, the adventure we're choosing now is one of delight, of
Yeah.
joy,
Totally.
of help.
Yeah, I've seen Adam do ministry, and there are times I'm so grateful that I really feel like the Lord did this, that he fixed this, honestly, because I couldn't have fixed it myself, and I didn't really ask him to. But there are times where in our marriage where I've looked at ministry opportunities for him and felt like they were kind of a threat to me, to the attention I want, the time I want, that it's a wrong priority or whatever, just kind of very accusatory in my mind and discontent. And the Lord has just moved my heart for what it looks like for Adam to be a shepherd to people who are in need, and that I can be so proud of him and I can build him up and I can affirm him in that. I can thank him in that. I am so grateful that our church has a pastor that really tries to know the people, care the people, for the people, serve the people. And that's not a threat to me. That's a blessing to me. But man, what a loss it would be if every time you were ministering to people in our church, I was telling myself that it was a threat. And it was a problem, and it was against me.
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that,
Then
Chelsea.
it grows your contempt with the church.
Right.
It's not just your spouse.
Right.
It's like,
Well, and that's how contempt
it's gonna
is.
steal your joy.
And joy is like that too, right? Like you can heap joy on joy and
Compound, right?
Yeah, it's
Interest
what's that word?
compounds.
Compound interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where you're stacking,
Yeah.
adding another brick to the joy castle.
Yeah, maybe two other words, maybe that would help color this a little bit. If contempt and compassion. Think of one as like some form of a shadow side of entitlement leads to contempt, where I had an unmet expectation or an unmet need, and therefore I have a grievance against you. And that comes from a sense of like, I was owed something. I didn't get it. Or you didn't meet my expectation, voiced or not voiced. And so it leads to contempt. And then compassion would be more like a decision to be empathetic. What must it be like to be you right now? And if, again, assuming the best, if I can be compassionate and say, well, I bet this is what's going on for you, or I understand why this is, or here's an opportunity for me to serve you. That comes from a heart that's genuinely cares and loves. But when you think about contempt in a marriage, and you think about our friends who struggle in conflict, and conflict is rooted in this idea of, when he does this, it drives me nuts, or when she does this, it drives me nuts. I get that. Again, there's a threshold by which we would say that is a legitimate problem. We can address that.
Sure.
But when is the problem? How do we know if the problem is with the person who is feeling contempt? How do you know?
Should we have a working definition for contempt?
Sure. What do you
curious.
guys think of the word contempt? What do you think?
I feel like there's an assumption of like almost like malicious intent in the other person. But I mean, contempt is like a resentment type. I don't know. It's like,
that's like negative.
some anger. I don't know. Can you look it up? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
curious because I think
It's
it
like
carries with it
the
some
offense
different-
of being disrespectful. Of course, that's like the court of law, where you're held in
like you're
contempt.
held in
Like you're not
contempt.
respecting the court.
Oh, I'm feeling
know?
like something like disdain.
Oh yeah, that's a good one
You
too.
know?
Yeah, I kind of think because I think it feels like such a strong word, but I do think we're using it accurately. And I just never thought about my actions being contemptuous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it's like we're playing it out. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I felt that way when, Eric's like he's a tapper. He likes to tap his foot. He likes to tap his. And most of the time it doesn't bother me, but sometimes it gets under my skin.
Yeah.
But I think to answer the question about how do you know the problem was with the person having the disdain or being contemptuous, it's that he's not doing anything wrong.
Right. It's a morally neutral item.
Yeah. The problem is obviously with me.
Yeah. Well, but then the idea gets to be for the person harboring contempt towards their spouse, he's doing that to bother me. Or like,
oh, sure.
Or he's not being considerate. When you think about someone who is having a speakerphone conversation in an elevator,
I'm raising my hand. Sorry.
I had no idea that you do stuff like that, but it's fine. I could see how someone would claim that's morally neutral, and I could also understand how someone would say, no, that's absolutely inconsiderate. It's rude. It's it's not. Sure. It's thoughtless. And so I think we can stretch a lot of the things in a marriage, and I think a lot of times both people are right. Where like someone's going, oh, I was doing that. Yeah, that is noisy. I was. Yeah, that was a little bit thoughtless. And so I think what that means for us as believers is Jesus is presenting us with a constant opportunity to defer.
Yeah.
And the scriptures say to outdo one another in showing honor. And so the posture of our heart should be one person should say, oh my gosh, am I bothering you? I didn't mean to. I can stop. And the other person saying, no, I understand you need to fidget a little bit. I know that makes you feel better. I can handle it. I can be patient with that noise. Both of us not arguing over who's right, but both of us arguing over who's going to be who's going to get to be the one that lays down their life in this moment.
Yeah.
To say, I know you just don't like to scrape peanut butter off a knife before you let it sit in the sink. That's reasonable, Yeah. That's totally reasonable because why? We'll clean it off later.
It's that holding your preferences above the dignity of the other person.
Yeah.
Really. It's like my preferences matter more than your dignity in this moment.
You're right. It's an elevation of our preferences.
Yeah.
And then we're turning that into like, right and wrong. You know.
It's positionally putting ourselves in a seat of judgment.
You're right.
And saying, I look at what you're doing and what you're doing is not okay.
Wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Oh,
it's offensive. It's disrespectful. It is similar to the way contempt is used in a court of law, right? Where you'd be like, as the judge, I find you in contempt. Like, what you're doing is disrespectful to me.
Yeah.
When really, maybe they're in a court of law, that could be a legitimate concern. What I'm really trying to address the difference between, but the spectrum would be when somebody does something like tapping a finger on something or leaving a little mess behind, and it causes us to despise the person we say we love. Because in our heart, instead of saying, oh, that is a idiosyncrasy, that is a aspect of them, that is a weakness they have, that is something I can address with them, we just let it drive us kind of up a wall. And what is it like when the person that we say we love and we have vowed to be committed to is the person who bothers us? Mm. And if instead, and again, I think some of this can be a conscious decision, that instead of saying, what you do drives me nuts, I could go, what you are like is endearing. And some of that is a conscious choice to say, I'm not going to let that bother me, or I'm going to say, this is what they are like. And it's okay that we're not exactly the same. Or to pray for patience, to say, I can put up with more. I can put up with more than that.
Yeah.
If Chelsea were constantly late for something that was really important to me, I'm not saying like I wouldn't be allowed to say something, but it would be a problem in my own heart if I let it lead to me despising Chelsea, right?
Right.
If I held against her something, especially that was morally neutral, like the example we've used before, Chelsea, this morning we had a talk with a group of women at a local church, talking to a MOPS group. That was my first time doing it. I think that was my first time ever speaking to an all-female crowd. It was you did great there. I felt like I blushed a couple times.
Actually, down with the patriarchy. Why? What were you doing there?
Yeah. Why was I there?
Yeah.
Honestly.
We talked about, some women in my life who were going around talking about some hygienic things their husbands do that make a mess in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And one of them describing, some sort of like a messy way that a man brushes his teeth and it leaves like dried toothpaste on the toothbrush. And I was like, oh, and Adam said it was okay to share this. So I guess it's okay now too. Right?
Yeah, might as well tell the whole world. Let's do it. I'm serious.
Okay.
Go ahead.
because the whole world listens to our podcast.
This is on the
If
internet,
only.
Chelsea.
The whole world was trying to disciple their children. How amazing that
Yeah,
is.
I was
would be
like,
good.
oh, my husband does that too. When I see it, like I clean it off for him. Like it is obviously not bothering him, but like it just seemed like a little thing I could do to serve him. I was like, oh, I'll clean that for him.
Which, by the way, I think is very Christ-like. Unless I'm doing it like in some kind of entitled sense of like, yeah, you will clean my toothbrush for me.
Right.
But that's not what was happening.
Right.
What's happening is like I did something that I literally is not even on my radar, right? But maybe you might be tempted because you're in a group of women to go, like, yeah, aren't men the worst? Aren't they gross? Aren't they awful?
Yeah.
And your heart was so mature that when you'd seen this problem, instead of letting it drive you to contempt, where you went, I despise the grossness of my husband, you went, oh, what an opportunity to demonstrate compassion, even if he would never notice.
Yeah.
And then in a conversation with a group of women to be able to say like, oh, here's a really easy way to handle that. I just serve my husband and take care of it.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
I want to be like Chelsea when I grow up.
Me too.
Well, I mean, that one was easy for me. I mean, and again, and then you go like, that's the Lord. I don't want to. I don't want to have any
That's right.
spots in my heart where it's easily full of contempt and disdain and that kind of stuff. And honestly, Adam, I do find you endearing, and for me, it's easier with you. And I know that's not the case in every marriage, but it's easy at this point to assume the best, to hope the best, to try to serve, to have compassion, to think about what it's like to be you. But I've realized in this conversation, I got to start taking it easy on people who are having that Bluetooth speakerphone thing in public.
Because you also love me. And now that you know that I'm one of those people.
Well, it is also just that point you made about like putting yourself in the seat of judge and then saying, I'm a judge and like my preferences dictate what's right and wrong. And I have now judged you
Totally.
as not right because you don't do something the way I would hold the phone to my head. And speak quietly because I don't think that everyone wants to know what's going on in this little situation I'm having,
I just want to apologize to all the Trader Joe's patrons.
They're
that
probably
were at
delighted to know about your life, Cassie.
the grocery store.
But this is so perfect because in parenting, we could address this almost more simply because it seems like there really is a natural authority in a parent-child relationship where if you were sitting in a seat of judgment, you'd be like, well, that sounds probably potentially righteous. In a marriage, when you sit in a seat of judgment, it seems like likely unrighteous, right?
Descending.
But the truth is, what James says is there is only one true judge, which means if I find myself ever in a seat where I'm going, I get it. There's a future judgment. There's a judgment within the church that we are called to help people out of sin, but it's not the harsh, critical, disdain, contemptuous judgment that tends to come up towards ourselves and towards others that is rooted in the fact that like the human heart loves to sit on the seat of judgment and determine for others what they should be doing. And that drives us to despise one another. And so if in a marriage we are each trying to be the judge, then obviously what happens, and this is very common in marriage, you feel defensive. I need to explain why you're wrong and why it's okay that I did what I did. And you're already starting from a position of like, this person has some form of disdain for me, some form of contempt for me. Now I've got to defend myself. Instead of a presumption of innocence, in other words, maybe a word that we would use more gospelly would be freedom. Because you walk in freedom, you do not have to sit on the seat of judgment. Somebody better does. One of the things I've said to our church before, and we've written about this as well, is that if you really got to sit down and think about what are the best characteristics of a judge, what would you pick? Cassie, if you got to say the best judge is a person who's what?
Knows the law.
Good. Knows the law.
Yeah.
What else?
Is upright.
Upright. They're righteous. They make fair judgments.
It's fair, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Now, what is the best aspect of your judge? If somebody was judging you, do you want them to be fair and know the law and uphold the law? Is that enough for you, or would you like something else in a judge?
I'd like them to be merciful.
Merciful. That's what we all want.
Yeah, we want the merciful judge.
We want the merciful judge. The truth is what we have in God is both a righteous judge who's good, who's just, who's always right, who knows the law. He wrote the law. And the blessing you have is that he's also merciful. Now, he's just in that there is truly punishment for sin. Sin was so serious that the punishment was taken on by the Son of God himself and paid for at the cost of his life, his life's blood. Very serious. But he's merciful. And for some reason, day after day, situation after situation about every little pet peeve in marriage, instead of walking in freedom that we've received from a merciful judge, we replace him and go, you know who's right here? This guy, me. I'm going to judge this moment, this thing. And instead of walking in the freedom that would say, I could demonstrate compassion right now, I could be forgiving right now, I could be servant-hearted right now, we walk around as if like I'm constantly being wronged by the differences I see in the people around me, in particular, my spouse.
This is a very convicting conversation.
I was going to say, I'm like, I probably have some apologies. Not just about my phone. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I texted Adam today. And honestly, Adam, you should have just rebuked me and said, like, that is so.
About what?
I counted how many empty tables were in this little coffee shop to tell Adam that this woman, I was in like.
You sat there and counted them.
Yeah. I sent you that there were 14 empty tables.
Yeah.
14. Okay.
That right by you.
Yes.
Facing her.
Facing me. So that if I look up from my book at any time, she's staring dead into my optic
I assume
nerve.
she's a listener. Yeah. She's probably just like really.
Well, now she knows. Huh?
Now she knows.
Well, but it's on me because I judged that. I sat in the seat of judge and I said, that is wrong. That is wrong. That there were, like I said, I counted. There were 14 empty tables. She could have sat anywhere and sat at a table right by me and facing me. So weird.
But the weirdness, what's strange to you, then you let it become something that bothered you.
Yeah. And she might have been thinking to herself, I hope this makes it easier for, wait staff to pick up trash.
Maybe.
I
doubt it. Maybe she just maybe she listened to an episode of the Family Discipleship podcast about friendship, and she was really hoping to make some good friends that would bless her marriage and her family.
Hang out.
Maybe.
I was not looking for a friend.
Let me turn the corner with you here, Chelsea. So when you think about Christ-likeness, maybe think about that situation, but in general, think about the scripture. What comes to mind for you when you think about Jesus Christ himself, when he is faced with situations that he might be tempted to be bothered by, or might drive another human being who struggles with sin to something like contempt or disdain? What story comes to mind, or what attribute of Christ? What comes to mind for you?
The disciples arguing over who's the best and who's going to get the best stuff. And it seems like if you were Jesus, you would go, people, I am the best.
Yeah.
Like, why are you asking who's going to be seated in power? Why are you asking these things? It's me. I'm awesome.
That's good.
And he doesn't. He's sweet to them, and he sits down and he tries to teach them and help them understand important, wonderful truths that will bless them and give them an opportunity at the abundant life. And he's trying to set them free, but he has compassion on them. He says, he basically sees their enslavement to the love of things like power and authority. And he's going, that is not actually going to set you free. Do you know what will set you free? A heart that's full of grace, a heart that's received mercy.
That's good.
So he sees them, and he doesn't excommunicate them either. He doesn't banish them from his presence to go I only hang out with righteous, good people who want to serve. If you follow me, you have to serve. He corrects them, but he is so merciful.
Yes.
But I think that's just, bananas opportunity for him to remind them that he's the best. And that's not exactly what he does.
I think about that exact same, one of those arguments happens at the Last Supper, right? And you think about, I was just thinking about how annoyed I would be if I were Jesus at the Last Supper. Where you go, I'm about to get betrayed by one of you. I just told you it's going to happen. And you guys want to argue about who's the best.
Mm-hmm.
I just told you I'm going to be crucified. If there's any night where I should be served, this would be the night. But instead, I'm washing your feet. And when I'm trying to wash your feet and make a point, what does Peter say?
Not mine.
Wash all of me.
Yeah, don't wash.
First, not
first
mine.
He says, don't wash my feet. He goes, no, if I don't wash your feet, you don't have no part. Well, then wash all of me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Peter, settle down. And then it's like, if everybody, you're all going to abandon me. I won't leave you no matter what. No, before the night's over, you're going to deny me 3 times. And then go through that night. How bothered would you be if you asked somebody, hey, will you pray with me? And they fell asleep. And you said, actually, this is really important. Would you just stay awake and pray with me? And they fell asleep again. And then they did it again. And then when somebody came and tried to arrest you, they tried to murder the person. And you had to say, hey, will you put your sword away? This is not what we're doing here. And then that person ran away and abandoned you. And then later that same night, you see them, you're proved right. They deny you 3 times and then leave the room crying. What would the next moment in that relationship look like? Wouldn't you think there'd be if it was me, I would have so much disdain
Mhm.
I would have such a hard time. I would feel like that person's going to have to come crawling back to me.
Yeah. Or I'm going to go let him have it.
Yeah. I'm going to tear into him about how I told you so.
Yeah.
I told you it was going to be like this. But what do you see in Jesus Christ when he restores Peter? He's like
cooking breakfast.
He's cooking breakfast.
Serving.
He invites him to come. This is another thing that I read about this in the book that we'll have coming out in August because it's so touching to my heart. That the difference between Luke 5, when Peter meets Jesus for the first time and Peter says, hey, go away. I'm super sinful. You shouldn't be by me. And then 3 years later in John 21, when Peter has had a really rough last couple of weeks, he has not proved to be sin-free at all. This dude is obviously still walking in sin, but the difference is now when he sees a new miraculous catch of fish, he tries to get to Jesus as soon as possible. Because after 3 years, Peter is convinced that sinners are welcome and wanted with Jesus Christ. And so he knows that Jesus is not going to have contempt for him because he's seen what Zacchaeus went through. He's seen what the woman caught in adultery went through, seen what Mary went through when she washed his feet and everybody's picking on her. He has seen that Jesus is not a man who has contempt for sinners. He's a man who has compassion for sinners.
Mhm.
And so what we see in Christ is the kind of compassion that, gosh, Chelsea, I want in my heart for you. To say, if you've ever wronged me, I don't get to go, finally, an argument, I win. Now I'm right, you're wrong.
Mhm.
That when I see you do something that either demonstrates your own weakness, your own frailty, your own fragility, or maybe some way that I've been wronged, that I don't go to contempt and disdain. I'll go, oh, you woman, you are a sinner just like me.
Mhm.
You also need
Yeah.
Jesus like I do. Oh, what could I do to bless this woman? How do I keep loving her in the midst of that? Instead of, here's my chance to be offended.
Mhm.
And that's what I think so many marriages, we would see so much more health if we chose in moments to see the dignity in the image of God in the other person
Mhm.
instead of the idiosyncrasy in the person that we let drive us nuts.
Mhm.
Or instead of holding against them, we've talked about this in earlier episodes, instead of holding something against them, saying, no, this is a way you have grieved me or wronged me and I'm not going to let it go. To say, man, maybe when Christ says forgive the way that you've been forgiven, I could practice that in my marriage.
Mm.
To say, I'm not saying I forgive you if you forgive me. I'm saying I am a forgiven man. Therefore, it is easy for me to forgive, right? Is Matthew 18, I think, where Jesus tells that parable about the servant who's been forgiven so much. And so when he meets somebody else who sinned against him just a little bit, you would think it'd be very easy for him to forgive them. But it's a perfect example of marriage. It's like, even though as a Christian man, I have been forgiven so much, it's still so easy for me to hold contempt against somebody that can wrong me even in a small way, whether it's one of our children, a coworker, or my own spouse. But since I've been forgiven so much, I should be so familiar with being able to say, I do not hold that against you. If anything, it's a delight to find another opportunity to get down and wash your feet, if the Lord could call me to it.
A schmet schmeeve.
A schmet schmeeve, if you will. Yeah.
That should be like a new hashtag for Family Discipleship Podcast.
Schmet schmeeve? How do you spell it?
Post your schmet schmeeves, people. We want to know what they are.
That's good.
SCHMET and then SCHMEEVE. Schmet schmeeve.
Schmet schmeeve.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Hashtag it. Well,
Yeah.
If you put a schmet schmeeve in a 5-star comment on the podcast, I will give you $1. All right.
Wow,
Oh,
$1.
wow. You start
$1.
mailing dollars to
I will
people.
mail $1.
Venmo.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
that's
Venmo
right,
you
Venmo.
$1.
Yeah, we'll Venmo you. We'll Zelle you $1.
Yeah.
That's instant.
I would be really delighted by that. I'm not on social media, but I can see the podcast reviews
Yeah,
or whatever.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's it. Man, that's all I want for our marriages.
Yeah, amen.
If this is the other thing, just to close out with this thought, I know we've been kind of soapboxing here for a minute, but it's late at night for us. If I wanted to disciple my kids through this, wouldn't this be one of the best things I could model for them? That not only towards them, but towards their mother. If they see me wronged by Chelsea or she spoke in a tone that wasn't appropriate, that it wouldn't fly off the handle, but I would be able to show compassion. Oh, I bet you have had a long day. How can I love you in this? Was my attitude, not in a condescending manner, but in a manner that was genuine and sincere love and compassion. If I could show them what Jesus is like in that, think about how safe Peter felt with Jesus after he'd messed up so bad. What if my kids could feel that safe?
Mm-hmm. Say, I know I can run to my father.
Yes.
I don't have to hide this from him.
I could run to my parents. I think about, some of my friends who have told me stories when their teenage kid, their teenage daughter came home pregnant, and she was so afraid to tell their parents. I've seen this story several times. It's not any one particular family where she didn't know how to tell her parents. She was so afraid of how they would respond. going, what if, even if she was in, like, this is a hard spot, she doesn't know what to do. She was like, I know what I can do. I can run to my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they are going to, there will be repercussions. We're going to have to figure this out. I'm not saying like everything's just fine, but I do know that everything can be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if our marriages were that safe? What if as parents, we were that safe? Because they saw how gracious we are towards sin and sinners. Now, Jesus is still the person who says, now go and sin no more. He also says, cut off your hand, pluck out your eye. He takes sin very seriously. But Peter is convinced that in spite of his sin, Jesus wants him.
Yeah.
And I would love to be that kind of dad.
Yeah.
Love to be that kind of husband where, in spite of my mistakes, in spite of yours, in spite of the kids, they're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus takes sin seriously because he's for us.
That's good.
Because he loves us, because he treasures us. So when he's saying it'd be worth it to cut off your hand or pluck out your eye in order to avoid this sin, he's saying like the way a father wants to protect his child, he's going that it would be worth it.
Yeah.
To protect you because that is going to harm you. And Jesus is so for us. And that's another thing that I want in this conversation when we think about discipling our children and the way we discipline our children. As we were talking about the preferences and that seat of judgment, I realized too, I'm like, I train my children in the Word of God. I train my children in a lot of things. I actually also train them to accommodate my preferences.
Boy, that's right. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've really
But I treat them like they're morals.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I teach them to do a thing the way I want them to do it, the exact way I want them to do it, even though like the Lord hasn't commanded it. I'm just really honestly
and
like.
then they're going to grow up and be in a marriage, and that's going to become their preference that they then hold against their spouse because they've been taught that's the right way to do it.
Yes,
that's how we do
generational
it.
particularity.
Yes.
Griffins hang up their towels, and then they're going to get married to a woman that doesn't hang up her towel
and lose it.
And lose it. They won't.
No.
They won't. They won't.
I'm
They
kidding.
won't. No.
I'm kidding. No, but I'm realizing, that elevation of my preference, like abuse my authority as a mother to say like, please do this the way I like to.
Yeah.
And honestly, there might be a consequence if you don't, because I want you to be, a certain amount of quiet at certain times. I want these things, stored in a certain location. I want it all to please me. That is messed up.
But that's Jesus calls that ruling like the Gentiles rule, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, since I have authority, you'll do what I want you to do. I rule over you.
Yeah.
It's even, we talk about marital submission, like the opposite of like servant-hearted leadership makes that really impossible for that to go well when you just want to rule and command over somebody.
Yeah.
But Jesus says, not so with you. If you want to be great, in other words, if you want to be a great husband, be a great servant.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be a great wife, be a great servant. Not in a be a doormat, not in a let somebody walk all over you, but in a mutual submission where you're both trying to serve one another and serve your kids. You'll find that contempt takes a backseat to compassion. I love this person. I love what they're like. I look for opportunities to serve them. I want to outdo them in showing honor. That's what we see in Christ as we're called to as spouses. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Well, thanks for listening, friends. If you think it's as important as we do to disciple our families, please help us out by giving us a great review wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit one of our sponsors and share this episode with one of your friends. If you want to keep up with us or join the conversation, you can find us at familydiscipleship.com or follow the Family Discipleship Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. We love you, listeners, and we will see you next week.